Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. I know I've been away for quite a while. Life has happened and life has given me a lot of surprises and a lot of emotions, good and bad. But I don't regret any of it because this is part of the poetry of life, and life is meant to be lived. So, what matters is that right now I'm back, and I'm back stronger and better than before. It's been quite a while, I think 2 months since I last made a video for this YouTube channel. And I actually wanted to make that video, the one I'm about to make today, 2 months ago. But as I said, life has happened. In my last video I talked about the art of haiku, and I explained the Japanese language, and I showed you a lot of haiku in the Japanese language with the translation. The reason why I did that, the reason why it was so important for me to do that, was because I actually wanted to discover the art of haiku in different languages. But in order to do that, I believe that we need to know where it comes from. We need to understand its source. And the source of this beautiful art form is Japan and the Japanese language. And it was also especially important to understand the Japanese language because obviously the other languages work in a very different way. So there's this rule of having 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. But does it apply in the different languages? It can. But in my opinion, it is not obligatory. So in my journey of discovery of the art of haiku, American Haiku to be precise, I bought 3 books. This one from Alexis Rotella, a poet from America. Haiku in English, the first 100 years, that shows a lot of different poets. And the one that really took my heart, Haiku, the last poems of an American icon, Richard Wright. We're gonna end with that one, and we're gonna start with that one, Alexis Rotella. So I chose 1 haiku in that poem, in that book, and I chose 2 haikus in that one, and I chose 3 haikus in the other one. So the reason why I found that interesting is because Alexis Rotella, she doesn't she doesn't follow the rule of the 5-7-5. And a lot of people write haikus in English or in different languages which are not Japanese, and actually even in Japanese don't exactly follow those rules. And I think it's okay, because in many poems nowadays you've got 3 verses, so why not apply the same rule or the same lack of rules to haikus? A quick introduction. Alexis Rotella, she's an American poet. She's still alive nowadays. She's 77 years old, I believe, and she writes a lot of Japanese styles poems in English. So there are different types of poems. We talk about haiku. Another one that we're going to talk about more in detail is senryu. Actually, senryu are like haikus. But they are also normally in 5-7-5 syllables. But whereas haikus are about nature, seasons, and the observation of what's going on around in the natural world, senryu are about human nature, and they are more cynical, So I chose 1 poem that I found interesting, and we're just gonna have a look and analyze it.
Lost earring on a bare branch hangs the moon.
Lost earring on a bare branch hangs the moon. So as you can see, this haiku doesn't follow the rules of 5-7-5, which is what I was talking about, which is one of the reasons why I decided to show you that poem. And also because I kind of like it, It is, I just have a picture. Basically, it's a very simple thing. You observe that earring hanging there. I don't know why it got lost. And maybe it's like a round earring which looks like the moon, and actually when you see it reflected in the night, it looks like the moon giving the light of the moon. Or maybe there's the light of the moon being reflected on it and create a second moon in the branch. You know, it's a simple thing, a simple observation, you know. I don't know if I don't see anything that I can say more about that poem, but I just wanted to show you that poem just to illustrate what I was talking about. So now we're gonna talk about that book, and in that book I found one poet that I found interesting for the subject, and his poet is called Ezra Pound, another important contemporary American poet. So I chose two poems from that writer, and I'm gonna tell you why I chose those poems.
In a station of the metro, the apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bow.
So the first one, in a station of the metro, the apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bow. So already you can see here that we don't have 3 lines, but we have 2 lines, which is already interesting. And I don't have to talk about the fact that it doesn't respect the 5-7-5, because obviously we already have, it doesn't, but we already have just 2 lines, you know. What does it talk about? You know, you have a lot of faces, an observation in the metro, a lot of faces, a lot of people passing by, and they are unknown. They don't tell you anything. They are people we don't know, you know, and they look like petals falling on a wet black bow. It's a simple poem, but it's interesting because, as you can see, it doesn't follow the rules. So that was another illustration of the fact that you can just use haikus and bend the rules. If actually it's a good way for you of expressing your emotion, of expressing yourself, you don't always have to worry about the 5-7-5 count. You can, but you don't have to.
Sai Chi. The petals fall in the fountain. The orange-colored rose leaves. The ochre clings to the stone.
So that next one, Tsai Chi, I don't know if I pronounce it well, is also interesting because it doesn't respect the count either. Still, it is in 3 lines. The petals fall in the fountain. The orange-colored rose leaves. The ochre clings to the stone. I hope I pronounced all the words well there. But that's another one, you know. Obviously, you've got the 3 lines, but you don't have the precise count. And so now I want to talk about that poet, because this is the poet that really made me understand how great haiku could be in the English language. So the interesting thing is that the 3 poems, the 3 haikus I've just shown you, don't respect the rules I've mentioned. But in this book, this poet fully respects them. However, I mentioned Senryu, and sometimes he mixes the art of haiku with the art of Senryu, which is interesting. In the 3rd poem we're gonna explore and analyze, we're gonna see that. But I find that interesting because despite the fact that he does respect all the rules that we mentioned, he still mixes 2 genres together. It's another example of the fact that when it comes to art and poetry, you don't have to follow exactly the rules. You need to understand them, you need to understand where they come from, but you can bend them if it helps you express what you want to express. So a quick introduction to Richard Wright, because he's a very important figure of the American literature and an important voice of the African American community at the time. He was writing a lot of books to talk about the condition of the African American community. For example, The Native Son or The Black Boy. And at the end of his life, he was bedridden with dysentery, and he spent maybe, I think, the 4 last years of his life in Paris. where he passed away. And at that time, he started being obsessed with the art of haiku, and he wrote thousands of haikus, and like 4,000 haikus, and he chose 817 personally that you can find in this book. His daughter actually created that book and put them all together. And so I really started reading some of his poems, and I got really seduced by the work I saw. It really spoke to me, and it really made me love this art of haiku, and it encouraged me actually in my journey of writing my own haikus. Even though I always respect the 575, I completely respect the fact that he does it, and I'm gonna try to do it as much as possible, but I just, I chose 3 of the poems, as I said, and I find them incredible, but we're gonna just check them together.
Eating a red apple, a little girl stares dreamily at the autumn sea.
Eating a red apple, a little girl stares dreamily at the autumn sea. So I don't know you, but when I read that poem, I really liked it. It really gave me a vivid picture. It's very simple, but the picture has a lot of strength and beauty to it. Just a little girl eating an apple, a red apple, staring at the autumn sea. The autumn sea is just a flow full of leaves of different colors. I see them mainly red, but oranges, some of them lightly brown, and it just gives me this picture of innocence. This girl just eats an apple, the apple is red, the color of autumn, like my shirt, which I chose for that reason, my favorite season, and she looks at the autumn sea. I don't know, a simple poem, a simple haiku, but that tells me not a whole story, but it gives me a feeling of peace. It gives me like very nice emotion, this nostalgia, but a beautiful nostalgia. It's simple, but that's the strength of the art of haiku.
Entering my town in a heavy fall of snow, I feel a stranger.
So that one, entering my town in a heavy fall of snow, I feel a stranger. That's the one that mixes haiku and senryu. I actually really like it too. It just enters a town, there's a lot of snow, so winter at that time, that's the season of that haiku. He feels a stranger. Why? There's not actually really a link between feeling a stranger and a heavy fall of snow, but the picture is there. There's the cold of the winter, it's sad, it's dreary, and on top of that, he feels a stranger. What am I in that town? Who am I? What is my place? I think a lot of us have had that feeling at some point. But I find it interesting how he mixes the two genres in that haiku. He enters a town, there's a heavy fall of snow. The heavy fall of snow, it's the element of the season, but then, which is a haiku, but then he feels a stranger. He explains how he feels, which is like a senryu.
I last saw a face under a dripping willow in a windy rain.
So I believe that one also follows the same thing, a mix between haiku and senryu. I last saw a face under a dripping willow in a windy rain. Again, I find that haiku so powerful in the meaning. I last saw a face. There's something romantic about that. It seems to me that this person that he saw was important to him. And there's a willow dripping, and there's a lot of rain. The rain, while being an important element of the survival of this planet, is often related to sadness. So there's a lot of sadness in that poem. man, I really like these haikus. I mean, I can't say enough, but I just want to keep reading those haikus, and it just really makes me want to write my own. I did actually. I started writing my own, and I'm gonna keep going. But this is really encouraging for me because I was wondering, and the reason why I was talking about the Japanese language and about the fact that we need to understand where haiku come from, but I was feeling that it was really difficult to translate this beauty in different languages. But this man particularly convinced me that I was wrong, and I'm so happy that I was wrong. You know, I just I don't know what you think, and those haiku, they really speak to me on another level. I just can't explain exactly what. I can't explain exactly what they inspire me, but they do inspire me a lot and a lot of emotions, very strong pictures and beautiful pictures. And I'm a big fan. So there you go. That's my video. I'm happy to see you again. And in the meantime, have a good day.